These are the 20 most realistic VR games of all time that have the highest resolution and graphics, and that you can play on Quest, PCVR, or even the PlayStation VR 2 headset. So let's dive right into it. And starting off this list, we have none other than Subside. Now this is a highly immersive diving simulator that lets you explore a bunch of underwater areas with a crazy level of realism. I mean, you can even see the smallest details, like the water trickling down your glasses when you're resurfacing, for example. But while this overall experience looks and feels quite relaxing, there are also a lot of collectibles and upgrades for you to make, as well as missions to complete if you want to reach all the unlockable places. But at number 2, we have Blade and Sorcery. Now this one is probably best described as a massive medieval fantasy VR game that focuses on physics-driven combat mechanics. And that means that the objects will feel like they have an actual weight to them, and that the impact with your magic spells or weapons will scale differently depending on the collision impact, or even the type of enemies that you throw them at. However, besides just brawling it out, you will also embark on a grand adventure in its campaign mode, which is filled with dungeons, boss monsters, and some deep lore with hidden secrets for you to discover. But moving on, we have number 3, which is Kayak VR Mirage. And this virtual reality experience is also known as one of the most photorealistic VR games ever made. And it is also pretty clear to see why. Because not only does it have some insane water graphics that look way too real for VR, the environment and gameplay itself are also polished up to the max. But of course, besides just laying back and admiring the scenery in here while you're paddling around, you can also do some races against other people online and try to rank up that global leaderboard. Or you could also challenge your friends in multiplayer if that is something you want. But talking about photorealistic games, we got number 4, and that is Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now this highly popular game probably doesn't need an introduction at all, since it is pretty much known for being the ultimate pilot sim game that is only limited by the power of your own PC. However, the best part is that next to the highly specialized planes that you are flying, the world itself is also crafted with such detail that it kind of feels like you have our entire planet at your fingertips. And number 5 is Assetto Corsa. Now, if you're looking for a good VR racing game, then this is pretty much the one that you want. And while it is important to note that it does have some sequels, like Assetto Corsa Evo, it is the original that has much better VR gameplay optimization and a bunch of awesome VR mods for you to dive into. And number 6 is Lone Echo 1 and 2. Now in this single player game, you will be put into the shoes of a robot named Jack who is trying to help out in an advanced mining facility that is located somewhere within the rings of Saturn. But without spoiling the story, a big unknown twist will put you into a roller coaster of intense and impactful storytelling that continues into its sequel and is one of the must-play single-player VR games that you need to try. And number 7 is Half-Life Alyx. And of course, this list wouldn't be complete without Valve's own VR game that is still considered by most after all this time as the best virtual reality game ever made. But it didn't receive this title for just being part of the Half-Life franchise. And instead, this was mainly thanks to its revolutionary interactions and gameplay mechanics that make it feel much more natural and immersive compared to other standard PCVR experiences. And that is not even mentioning the insane modding community who have added multiple full game lengths worth of content to this title for free. So if you somehow still haven't played this one, then please do yourself a favor and give it a shot. And number 8 is Red Matter 2, which is a narrative-driven single-player action-adventure game that has you unravel its mysteries while solving puzzles and finding your way through its levels. Although, the most surprising thing is how good this one manages to look on the standalone headsets such as the Meta Quest 3 and Quest 3S, since it only has very limited downgraded graphics compared to the PC version, which is a big contrast to most normal current-gen ports. But if you're looking for something more calm, then we have number 8, which is Real VR Fishing. And as the title already implies, this is a fishing simulator that has some beautifully crafted sceneries and over 300 fish species for you to catch. And if you want to add even more fun to it, then it also has a multiplayer mode that lets you chill out at these fishing spots together with your friends. And on number 10, we got Stormland. And this VR classic has been around for quite some time. But it somehow still hits just as hard as when it was first released, because this action-packed high-speed sci-fi shooter has you flying across its maps while you're taking out your opponents with either stealth or get some big style points. And that all while you're trying to unravel the story of this dystopian world at the same time. Oh, and there is also a co-op mode built in, although I highly recommend trying it as the single-player experience first. And on number 11, we got Hubris. And as you can probably already tell from the gameplay, this VR game looks and feels pretty insane. And from the first second on, it is clear to see that the developers have put nearly everything they got into the graphics while building it. However, while the narrative side, on the other hand, isn't necessarily its strong suit, overall, Uber still manages to push out some of the most jaw-dropping visuals that VR has to offer. And number 12, we got Skyrim VR with mods. And yes, the mods part in here is important, because while the base game is still more than playable right out of the gate, the original graphics haven't aged that well over the years, so upgrading them with one of its many easily available mods is definitely the way to go. Although, just keep in mind though, that this will require some serious power, depending on how many of them you want to install at the same time. But no matter what, Skyrim VR is still a must-play game both on flat screen and in virtual reality. And on number 13, we got No Man's Sky. And this one probably has one of the most insane comeback stories of any released game to date. Because after its rocky original launch that happened years ago, the devs have pushed out an insane amount of free content that still gets added to even now. And it is so much that at this point, it is almost impossible for you to experience the whole thing, even if you really wanted to. So, if you're looking for the best bang for your buck, then you cannot go wrong with No Man's Sky. And that also goes for our number 14, which is Aircar, since this game is completely free. But while it is a pretty short experience, it is still definitely worth to try it out, because it lets you fly across a cyberpunk-like city with some really cool effects during your journey. Just keep in mind though, that if you quickly get motion sick, then you might want to wait this one out. And on number 15, we have Skydance Behemoth. And this title is made by the same developers behind the amazing Walking Dead Saint and Sinners. However, this complete new IP is now set into a dark fantasy world where giants and colossal boss monsters are still roaming the earth, and where it is now up to you, with your cursed powers, to find a way to take these massive enemies down. And on top of that, besides the big story mode, they have also unlocked and added in a battle arena and quick trials as a free download DLC. And these can definitely be worth it if you already enjoyed the combat in here. But before we move on to the next 5 most realistic VR games that you don't want to miss, let's first have a quick word from the company that made this video possible. Because none other than Cat VR, who are known for creating VR treadmills that look like they come straight out of Ready Player One, are once again taking virtual reality to the next level. Because while we are normally limited by the boundary system inside our VR experiences, it is Cat VR that has created these VR treadmills that let you run and jump without any limitation. And since their most recent version, which is known as the C2 Plus Enhanced, is compatible with every VR headset that you can think of, it is also often considered as the dream upgrade for any VR user. And they even go so far that it has things like haptic feedback built into it, as well as a vehicle hub, which will make it feel even more realistic when you're racing on a track or flying through the sky. And as a cherry on top, you can also use the code VRelity for a whopping $130 off on your entire purchase. So for those who are interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. And on number 16, we have Green Hell VR. Now you might know this one already, since Green Hell was originally a flat screen game before it came to virtual reality. And overall, this is a pretty brutal survival game where you will have to craft your own shelter and hunt for food, while you're also trying to stay away from the many dangers that are lurking in the jungle. But while the VR controls do feel a bit clunky at times, the tension and jump scares in here are still on another level that not many VR games manage to pull off. And number 17 is Star Wars Squadrons, which lets you become a starfighter within the Star Wars universe. And that means that you will be able to modify your own engines, shields, and cosmetics while you're going into some adrenaline-pumping battles that all take place after the events of Return of the Jedi. However, while the game does look stunning, lots of users are recently experiencing some problems with its launcher, so this might be something that you want to keep in mind. And number 18 is Cube VR. Now, just imagine Minecraft, but then with insane graphics, ray tracing, and real-world objects to interact with that are not square-shaped. But it is mainly the cool tools that you use in here to either craft or destroy your surroundings that make this overall feel so much more real and addictive. But moving on, we have number 19, and that is Horizon Call of the Mountain. And this is also one of my favorite VR games of all time, because besides it being part of an amazing gaming franchise, the climbing, platforming, and traversals in it feel so natural that I sometimes have to be careful not to jump in real life as well. And that is not even mentioning the great combat that lets you use things such as bow and arrow, or the overall beautiful world building. However, The only downside is that it is sadly a PSVR 2 exclusive, with no release date for PCVR or Quest on the horizon. And number 20 is Arcane Age, and this is also one of the most underrated yet must-play VR titles that are out there. And that is especially the case if you love some good boss fights and a lot of customization. Because here, you can completely change up your loadout to your own liking, or even switch to melee if that is what you prefer. But next to the battles, it also has a fantastic looking world that you will get to explore during its big campaign mode. Although, that is not all. Because besides all these realistic VR games, there are also a lot of must-have mixed reality games on the Quest 3 that you need to play. So click on the video that you see on screen right now to make sure you don't miss out on that. And of course, stay awesome.